So have you ever been frustrated with the world of fitness? I think for a lot of guys it can be a little bit challenging, only from the lens of there's so many different kinds of fitness programs. There's so many different exercises. There's so many different thoughts and beliefs and gurus and coaches, and it's so overwhelming that for any well-intentioned guy, I kind of feel bad for them because it's hard to figure out what you should be doing. And not to mention, I think a lot of us are led by one goal, because one of the biggest challenges that most of our population is facing right now is obesity. It's extra body fat. So if you're looking to lose extra body fat, that's what usually triggers most people to start on an exercise program or to start on some sort of a nutrition diet. And usually, if it's important enough, you'll usually figure that out, right? Most guys that I talk to, they figure out a way to lose weight. But the problem is it's not sustainable. So the things that they're doing, the fitness program that they're on, the diet that they're on, for some reason, it doesn't stick around. And the results of weight loss tend to go up and down, right? Because we hit that goal and then we sort of fall off the wagon. So when I got through my cancer, I had kind of a similar sort of experience. I was, if you haven't watched part 1 through 3, you can go back and kind of hear my story. But one of the things that I noticed was once I got the all clear for my cancer, and I had spent about a year and a half building my health. So I was looking better, I was feeling better, I was performing better. Like everything about my body was so much better than when I had gone into cancer, because pre-cancer, I was drinking a lot, eating a lot of bad foods, had all kinds of bad habits. So coming out of it, I'm like, okay, I'm in this great place. I achieved the goal of beating my cancer. I achieved the goal of looking better and feeling better. But now I was like 31 or 32 years old. I had a huge problem of how am I going to sustain these results? How am I going to live my life at a very healthy level? And I wasn't satisfied with the level of health I was at. I actually wanted to get better. So even though you would look at me and you would say, wow, you look incredible, you look very healthy, looks aren't good enough. I knew there had to be something else there because I wanted to, I'm a little bit competitive. And if I'm standing next to someone else who looks like me, I want to know, am I healthier than that person, right? But it's hard to quantify health. But that's the conundrum I was in once I escaped this really dark place of cancer. And I learned a lot of different techniques. I learned a lot of different things about nutrition. I learned a lot about exercise. I learned a lot about sleep and stress and all of those things because I was immersed in all that stuff trying to figure this all out. But the protocol I had was completely unsustainable. Like it literally during my cancer, it was like a full-time job trying to figure all this stuff out and trying to sustain all of the different things that I was doing. So I knew that if I wanted a normal life and I wanted to get healthier, I had to get this figured out. So what does that look like? Well, in the last video, I kind of talked about nutrition and what that path looked like. In this video, I want to really talk about the fitness journey and where that sort of took me. So I believe now, looking back, I believe that fitness is sort of it is the thing that separates the healthiest people from the somewhat healthy people. If we really want to know who is the healthiest person out there, look to the person with the biggest physical capabilities, right? And if you sort of think of this, and this is one of the thought experiments I had used, I'm like, okay, who are the healthiest people in the world? Like this is back when I was like 32, and I had been a college swimmer, and I had actually worked with a lot of athletes because I was in the world of health and fitness. I was, believe it or not, had a degree in exercise science. So I'm like, who are the fittest, the healthiest people in the world? And I came to the conclusion that it was the young, high-performance athletes, right? So what did the high-performance athletes, what were unique about them? Well, they had amazing physical capabilities, right? They could run forever, they were strong, they were powerful, they had great movement patterns, they were very agile, they were coordinated, they had all these physical capabilities, all things that we need as we get older, right? And I sort of knew that even at the young age of 30. I knew that as I got older, I didn't want to lose any of those things, right? So I knew I needed to build that. But what do they also have? They have generally very low body fat numbers, not because they were chasing that as a goal, but that was the outcome of them chasing something much more important, which is human performance, right? Because obviously, if you're a great athlete, you can't gain a bunch of extra weight because it's going to decrease your performance, right? At least for 90% of the athletes out there. And then the other thing that they had was great numbers from their doctor. Like if a great athlete goes to the doctor, they're going to get great results. They're going to get good blood pressure numbers. They're going to have a low resting heart rate. They're going to have, right, you name it, you can pretty much pick anything and they're going to be better than average, right? And at the time in my life, I was somewhere around average and I wanted to be better than average. So I knew that I need to set my focus on my fitness. So there is sort of the lesson here. One of the things that you need to do if you really want to be the healthiest version of yourself, especially as you get older, is you have to focus on your fitness. So going back to what does that actually look like? Now, I knew there was a few different components to fitness, right? So we have different sort of specialists in the fitness world. And that's kind of where I started, right? So I started looking at like, okay, I knew one of the components was to have great endurance, cardiorespiratory endurance. And back then, cardiorespiratory endurance was like the fittest man in the world was, if you remember Mark Allen, he was a triathlete. He was on the cover of all these magazines and he was considered to be the fittest man on earth. But what I thought was interesting was his specialty was really in endurance stuff, right? He could go for long periods of time and produce a lot of work in those long duration events, right? He had a tremendously efficient cardiorespiratory system. He had a very high VO2 max. Like those are things that we can look at. But I knew that he was also missing some things. So I knew that there was some value there. I knew that I needed to have better cardiorespiratory endurance. But I also knew, partly because of the work that I was doing, I also knew that there was a really good chance that he probably wasn't very strong. And I kind of knew this because I had worked with a lot of athletes and I knew that a lot of endurance athletes lacked strength and power. And then vice versa. A lot of strong, powerful people lacked endurance, right? So you could sort of specialize in these areas. So I'm like, okay, well, I know that I need to have great cardiorespiratory endurance, but I also need to be strong. So I'm like, okay, well, who are the strongest people in the world? And the strongest people in the world are the power lifters. And if you know anything about powerlifting, it is a sport. There's 3 contested lifts. One is the deadlift, one is the back squat, and one is the bench press. I had a problem with the bench press, believe it or not. And the reason I had a problem with the bench press was because it was done lying down. And most of the physical things that you're going to do in your everyday life, especially as a guy over 40, is typically not laying on your back. So I knew that there might have been something a little bit better there. So anyways, that's where it all kind of started, right? I wanted to look to the best in the world and I wanted to really kind of learn what they were doing and how that was so beneficial, right? So the strongest people in the world, they can move really heavy stuff. Like it's incredible. So again, my goal was not to be the strongest person in the world, but I did know that I wanted to be strong. So why not follow in the footsteps of those people, right? Maybe not to the same degree, but again, I wanted to learn from them and I wanted to practice the things they were practicing. And then I wanted to know, who are the most powerful people in the world? And if you look at the most powerful people in the world, like if you really measure it, and you can measure it, you can use physics to measure this, it's a combination of strength and speed. So the most powerful people in the world, they can move large loads, long distances, and quickly. So the most powerful people in the world are the weightlifters. And if you don't know anything about the sport of weightlifting, which most people don't, so I wouldn't expect you to, just go to the Olympics and look up USA weightlifting. It is an actual sport, and there's 2 contested lifts. One is the clean and jerk, and one is the snatch. And these athletes are moving ridiculous amounts of weight in a very fast way, because it's the only way that they can move these really heavy weights. And they're taking the weight from the floor all the way into an overhead position. These are measurably the most powerful people in the world. And here's the really interesting thing. When you look at strength and power, which are 2 of the things that we see in everyday life, someone who is super, super fit has both of those things, right? And the endurance, but they have both of those things. But if you want to train those things, the cool thing is there's efficiency here because both of those athletes, they use a barbell. And there's some carryover between the exercises that both of them use. Both of them squat, both of them deadlift. There's a reason, because it creates the strongest, most powerful humans on the planet. So I'm like, that's where I need to go. If I want to be strong, and I want to be powerful and I want to build over the years, I need to learn those things. And that's exactly what I did. I learned how to be a power lifter. I learned how to be a weightlifter. In fact, I competed in events. Good thing there was weight classes because clearly I'm not a big guy, but that's why they have weight classes. I wanted to be as strong as I possibly could. I wanted to be as powerful as I possibly could. And then I also wanted to add in the endurance. Endurance is a little bit more tricky because there's lots of different ways you can train it. But when you're training for what I call the sport of life, life, and that's why you're here. We want to train the sport of life. You want to really kind of pick up all kinds of different movement patterns, different exercises, and you want to combine them together into different ways. You want to combine them together into different types of workouts, different lengths of time, and you want to really raise your heart rate and you want to raise your respirations. If you can elevate those things above and beyond normal, that would be cardiorespiratory conditioning. Anytime you challenge that system, that's what's going to force your body to adapt and get better. So then, my next step was to take all three of those components and figure out how to program for those things so that I could get daily workouts in that didn't require me to spend hours in the gym. And that's what I've been literally obsessing over. At least one of the things I've been obsessing over is trying to create as much efficiency as possible in the actual programming to create the fittest human beings in the world. Or you could say it another way, the healthiest human beings in the world over time. And the cool thing is over the years, I've gotten significantly stronger. For a guy who's running at about 160 pounds, it baffles me. I'm 49 years old. It baffles me how strong I am and how powerful I am and how great my endurance is. And again, the cool thing is when you're chasing performance like I am, there's a really good chance you're probably going to be eating better, right? You're probably going to be sleeping better because if you're not doing those things, it's going to affect your fitness. It's going to affect your health. If I were to just tomorrow start eating poorly or stop sleeping good at night, what would that do to my performance? And that is the day-by-day indicator of how healthy you are. So the more time you invest in building your fitness, building your body, and measuring some of the results along the way, because that's super important, that's how you know if you're getting better or if you're getting worse. And as the years go by, for someone that hasn't trained for a lifetime, you should be able to see those numbers go up for decades. I mean, it is wild. I've got a 70-year-old gentleman who is stronger, more powerful, and has better endurance than most of the people on this planet. I would put him up against just about anybody. So there is sort of the golden ticket when you want to be the best version of yourself. If you want to live a very healthy life, you want to live in a body that is very physically capable. And then all of the other things like body fat, like markers from the doctor, the things that we tend to chase, but rather they should be outcomes, those things get better. They just automatically get better. So that's what we need to look at when it comes to fitness. Learn how to use a barbell. Learn how to move your body well. There's a lot of underlying things like injury rehab if you've got old chronic injuries, flexibility, coordination, balance, agility. Like all of these things are kind of, they're components of being able to express strength, power, and endurance, right? So you have to kind of bring those things in as well. And unfortunately, I can't give you the exact programming because everybody's going to be a little bit different. It really just depends on where you are on this journey. And look, if you'd like some help, there's a good chance I can help. If you go to athleticafter40.com, one of the things that we do is we work with guys over 40 to help them on their nutrition, to help them sleep better at night, to manage their stress, and then to program for you so that you can build your fitness over the years. And we always start with the foundations, which is just good movements. And again, based on your situation, we would program for you specifically so that you can build that foundation that you need so that you can eventually, you can get better and better over the years. And that's what we should be chasing. Don't get caught up in the aesthetics at any cost game that most of the fitness programs out there are going to sell you. Don't get caught up in the fad diets that are only going to sell you aesthetics at any cost. You want to chase performance. You need to perform better. If you can do that, that's going to change your life and it's going to give you a mission. I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, my North Star is to be as healthy as possible. So I'm no longer chasing specific goals. I just want to get better over time. And how do you do that? It's a journey and you have to just keep showing up and doing the work. And if you have someone who knows what they're doing and can support you on this journey, a true expert that has been there, done that, and helped many, many other guys just like you, that is like, it is the most valuable thing that you can have. And I've had so many coaches over the years and so many experts that have helped me to get to where I am and continue to help me on my journey that I can't say enough good things about what it means to actually build this component of your life. So chase fitness. It will serve you literally for a lifetime.